Hello and welcome to Mabinda TV. So this is the Daily Show KE, where I basically look at the top issues in Kenya, Africa, and the world. So of course, what is the top trending issue in Kenya right now? That is our celebrities faking their lives. So you have Aziat Nasenya. Basically, she was Aziat Nasenya is in a debt of that is one is in a debt. Basically, she is living a fake life. Of course, it is rumored that she borrowed Mungai if 400,000 shillings, but she has been unable to return that money. So our celebrity is faking it. So where does she get her money from? I think we could start with maybe a social, that is her job at Sound City. Of course, it is an urban FM station, so basically it pays well. So it could be paying about 400,000 shillings, and then maybe one or two brand endorsements per month. That's another maybe 200k each. That's another 400,000 shillings, and then a corporate emceeing events, another 400,000. So that could be 1.2 million shillings per month. It could be 1.2 million shillings per month that Aziat Nasenya erects in. So why is she in debt? Basically living beyond her means, and that's the whole disadvantage of Instagram. That basically it will never show you that this person is having a bad day. It will never show you. It is all about I am grooving, I am moving with the latest trends, the latest fashion. I am in the best hotel, I am driving the latest car, latest sophisticated car. So that's the bad side of social media. So basically, it is about competition, and this is why mental health issues in our young people is a worrying disease. Mental health is a worrying disease in our young people because people are comparing themselves towards their lifestyles they are seeing online, and they are seeing everyone but themselves are doing well, and that's what is wrong with our present social media lifestyles. Everyone is doing well. Everyone is in the latest club. No one is posting their bad days. That's what we should know about social media. No one is posting their bad days. Everyone is doing well, and this aspect of comparing is what is leading to a lot of mental health issues. These days, even 10-year-olds are suffering from mental health. You can imagine, even 10-year-olds. 10-year-olds are supposed to be playing outside without a care in the world of what is going on in the world. But even 10-year-olds right now are suffering from mental health issues. Why? Because they see a certain kid is going to the supermarket, is being bought big items, but then there is nothing they can do, and that's why and then you have these 10-year-olds having mental health diseases. And this is why I think you have the likes of Mark Zuckerberg. Instagram is owned by Meta, which also owns Facebook and WhatsApp. So you have Instagram, you have the CEO Mark Zuckerberg being told by Australian authorities that he has to do more to combat mental health issues in Australia. I think in Australia they have banned teenagers from I think accessing social media because they say teenagers apparently it is a toxic environment for teenagers, and this is why because social media is selling us seven-figure lifestyles, and that's why that is something that we must be looking into. Basically, social media is selling us seven-figure lifestyles, and it is something I think that we need to be looking at. Why is it that people are faking it? Basically, everyone seems to be doing well, and I think for the Nasenya, it is not a mistake on of her own. Think about how she came to the limelight. She is the most famous TikToker in Kenya, or maybe in East Africa. She is the most famous TikToker in East Africa. She came to the limelight through the Utawezana song. That is Utawezana, basically dancing to the tune of that Utawezana song. That's how Aziat Nasenya came to the limelight, and of course then she became a big brand, and of course was approached. I think after doing several gigs, I think she's still a journalism student at KMC. I'm not sure which college she is in, but I suspect she is still a journalism student at KMC. Of course, KMC, Kenya Institute of Mass Communication, has produced a lot of brilliant that is a journalist. So of course she is a student at KMC, and of course came to the limelight, got mega deals, and that's how she began rolling the high life. Of course, she has been linked to dating a hype. I think there are links to her dating Babu Namwamba, but of course, then she has refuted those claims that she can't fund her own lifestyle. That basically her trips abroad are not financed by Babu Namwamba. So basically, that's it about Asiat Nasenya. So basically, it is that she is deep in debt, and basically, that social media is all about faking it till you make it. And that's the bad thing about social media, faking it till you make it. Sometimes people are committing suicides out here because they are comparing their lives and they are seeing that there is nothing more they can achieve. Look at the way Ambare posts her herself making supper. You have commenters saying isi supper miambili, isi supper miambili. So what do they expect their husbands who give them 200 shillings per day? What kind of mental anguish do they go through? You have Ambare posting that is her supper, maybe made up to 5,000 shillings. Then you hear commenters, you see commenters saying hisi ya watu wameacha 200 nyumbani. So basically mtu anyameacha 200, you don't expect such kind of treatment. So you can see that very much social media is all about peer pressure, is all about faking it lifestyle. I'm not saying everyone that is posting on social media is cheating. No, some people of course live the luxurious life, but how many do we have in Kenya? How many such people do we have in Kenya? Less than 1%. Most people in Kenya stay in pipeline. Most people in Kenya stay in maybe one bedroom house or even a single room. So basically, I think that is why then I think social media will be good for posting. So if social media is good for if I'm not saying social media is entirely bad for ourselves, because some people promote their businesses through social media. I can see some people promote their businesses through social media, and I think even in the US when TikTok was banned, there are about 7 million businesses that were up in arms saying that TikTok helps us to promote our businesses. So then it had to take Donald Trump basically to sign an executive order to extend TikTok in America. So basically, I think right now social media is a tool. I think everyone is using social media, but let's use it in practical ways. There are ways. And maybe let us even put a disclaimer on the kind of lifestyles that are shared on social media. Let's put a disclaimer that not everyone is living such kind of life. That's just the fact of life. Not everyone is living such kind of life. Basically, people aren't posting their bad days, and that's why I think then it is not a tool that is just it is a tool for I think a lot of peer pressure. Some people basically are depressed. Many people are depressed because they think everyone is doing better than themselves. That is, everyone is doing better than themselves. So that's it about Azed Nasenya, and of course her being deep in debt. So let's now turn to politics now. That is, regarding Gachagua says that President William Ruto has no moral authority to talk about corruption. I think he was talking this in Western. That's what the impeached Deputy President William Ruto, the impeached Deputy President Gachagua says. He says that William Ruto does not have the President William Ruto does not have the moral authority to talk about corruption. So how do we tackle corruption? It appears, of course, William Ruto was accused. The President was accused of corruption when he was the deputy president, but then he pushed those things aside. But then I think corruption is something that we must be looking into. Basically, corruption, theft of public resources is why Kenya, is why Africa is in the state it is in. Basically, we don't have enough resources for everyone's creed. As the late Mangari Mazai said, there is enough for every Kenyan, there is enough for every one of us but not enough for everyone's greed. So that's why then you have a lot of these people, a lot of stealing that goes on. Where do they take that money from? Where? And they're not even investing that money in Kenya or in Africa. They're investing that money in Western safe tax havens where they can. I think in a place such as Switzerland, you can hide your wealth to the fourth generation, so you can't see that corruption is something. I don't think President William Ruto is fighting corruption to look at what we are being shown through Vampire Diaries, that is by Morara Kebaso. People are starting projects and then that money is eaten by contractors and then nothing happens. But of course, remember, to get a government contract, usually you have to give kickbacks. And Deputy President William Ruto was accused that during his time as Deputy President, he would just place a call to the minister that he wants certain percentage of kickbacks. That's why then it is very, very bad to be able to, that is, corruption is high heavens, because the president could just place a call to the Treasury Secretary. You have Okiom Tata, one of the favorites of the Gen Z, saying that it is the president that controls the budget, that what we do call the budget statement that is read every June in Parliament basically is just a public relations exercise, that who controls the budgeting process. It is actually the president. He just calls the president just calls the Treasury Secretary, the Minister of Treasury, and basically places certain demands on give this and this amounts to this and this place. So that's why corruption goes unabated, because the president is the one that calls the shots. And basically this is something that I think we must be able to look at. How is it that basically corruption sinks to high heavens in Kenya? And in Japan, what happens to the corrupt? The corrupt commit suicide because of the shame they have caused society. In China, what happens to the corrupt? The corrupt in China, the corrupt are shot by the firing squad because of the damage they have caused society. In Europe and America, what happens to the corrupt? The corrupt resign as they wait for the long arm of the law to catch up with them. But in Kenya, in Africa, what happens to the corrupt? The corrupt in Africa, they are celebrated and they elected back to office. We say he could be corrupt, but he is one of us. So basically that's why we celebrate corruption in Africa, because we say he is corrupt, they are corrupt, but they are one of us. And that's why elections in Africa are a matter of life and death, because when you are elected to office in Africa, that's an opportunity for stealing. When you are elected to office in Africa, that's just an opportunity for stealing. That's maybe now the public coffers are open to you, and that's why usually it is the president and his circle that usually are the richest people. I think President William Ruto was ranked as the second most corrupt in the world, second most corrupt person in the world after Al-Assad of the deposed president of Syria. So President William Ruto was ranked as the second most corrupt person in the world. So what does that say? He needs to change his ways. Basically, we need to be able to show that Africa is going to be able to only develop if our leaders did away with corruption. You cannot be talking about doing away with corruption when corruption sinks to high heavens in your ministers. That's why we find that basically when a minister says they have a weakness for fine things in life, so are we supposed to finance their fine things in life? That's what we should ask ourselves. Are we supposed to finance their fine things in life? And that's why corruption is something that I will continue to talk about in the years to come. This is corruption. Corruption stinks to high heaven. Corruption makes us not have drugs in hospitals. Corruption makes us not have an effective number of teachers in our schools. Corruption makes us have dilapidated roads. So that is when you are taking your milk to the marketplace, it and the milk gets poured. That's what corruption does to us, and that's why we must really talk about this thing. This menace is messing up Kenya. It is messing up Africa, and that's why corruption is something that we must be able to we must be able to talk about it. And basically, why don't we make an example? Basically, why is it that a person who steals chicken, who steals a bicycle, is given a lengthy sentence, even 12 years in prison, while a person who steals billions, their case is postponed every other time, and then finally, they are let go scot-free. Maybe those amounts even scare the judges. If you hear the judges looking at those figures, maybe someone has stolen 10 billion shillings or $100 million. Basically, the judge is even scared of that amount. Basically, they say if you can buy the judge, why hire a lawyer? That's the case that they say in Kenya, in Africa. They say if you can't buy the judge, why hire a lawyer? So basically, corruption, we should have make a good example of the corrupt, but it starts at the presidency. So what will the fish rots from the head? That's where it starts. And so how do we then prevent corruption? That's something that we must be able to look at. How do we prevent corruption? Corruption costs us money in great detail. Corruption makes us be a poor country, but it's enough to go around. That's why the late James Karaoke, said there is that is the late Josiah Mwangi Karaoke, JM Karaoke, said that Kenya is a country of 10 millionaires and 10 million beggars. Maybe right now it's a country of 10 billionaires and 10 million beggars. So you can imagine Kenya is a country of 10 millionaires and 10 million beggars. So basically, we have enough resources, but then those resources are stolen by the elite class. And those resources are stolen. Why do you think these people are all clamoring for their children to go to these international schools? Where do they get that money from? They get that money from stealing our public resources, and that's why elections are a life and death matter. You wonder why is someone that has a net worth of 2.01 billion shillings, I'm talking about Kaboko, why is he looking for a job in government? Essentially, it is to protect his wealth. That's all it is about, to protect his wealth. And that's why he is looking for a job, even though he is worth 2.01 billion shillings. He is looking for a job that is only going to pay him 1 million shillings. You see how corrupt it is. You see Mdavadi, he is worth 4 billion shillings. So why is he looking for a job in government? To protect his wealth and to steal some more, to add some more money to his kitty. Why is that is Ali Hassan Joho looking for a job in government when he is worth, I think, 1.4 billion shillings? Why? To protect his wealth. He is going to get that money in government and steal some even more. So you can see that the reason why people are looking for jobs, are looking for this government, lucrative government positions, is to steal, first of all, to protect what they already have, and then to steal some more. Do you think someone gets a tender to supply government maybe with furniture? Do you think they just get that tender like that? No, they have to give the minister concerned some kickbacks. That's how it goes. That's how business is done in this part of the world. So basically, the thing is that the thing is that this is a corrupt country. Kenya is among the 10 most corrupt countries in the world, and unless we change the fish rots from the head, I don't think the president has the moral authority. I think I quite agree with the Deputy President Gachagua here that the president has no moral authority to talk about corruption, to talk about how he will institute measures against the corrupt when he himself has been accused of corruption. So this is just for the gods to save us. We are in a very, very a delicate situation, and if we don't do something about it, Kenya is going to burn, Kenya is going to explode. And I think a revolution is in the calling. The Gen Z revolution was started away. Maybe people, I think the Gen Zs maybe did not have they were withdrawn maybe to go the Bangladesh way, where the president was forced out until she fled to exile in India. I don't think Kenyans we have reached that point, but I think a revolution is in the offing. There needs to be a revolution. Basically, we cannot be living like this when some public officials are just stealing our monies left, right, and center, and then pounding us more debt and more debt. I think the Forbes magazine lists Aliko Dangote as Africa's richest man. That is what Forbes magazine lists Aliko Dangote as Africa's richest man, but I just don't think they have done their homework well. When you do your homework well, actually Aliko Dangote is a very poor man compared to what some of these African presidents and many cabinet ministers have as their wealth. So basically, these people are just looting our coffers dry. They're looting our coffers dry and basically making us so poor. Basically making us very very poor. So basically it is just about looting and more looting, and that's why we have no jobs for our young people. We cannot create the jobs, we cannot put drugs in the hospitals, we cannot have teachers in schools, we cannot repair our potholes, roads. We cannot do all these things because public money is going into private bank accounts. That's how people get it in Africa. People get it in Africa by how close they are to power, not by their creative genius streak, not by their hard work, not by their skills, not by their talent. People get rich in Africa, people get rich in Kenya by how close they are to power. You are close to power, you basically just loot resources. You don't work hard, you don't invent a factory, you don't invent a product, you don't invent a service. This is how people get rich in Kenya. This is how people get rich in Africa. How do you have 2 billion shillings in net worth while you don't have a single product you have invented? You don't have a single service you have invented. These are basically thieves, nothing more than that. These are thieves that are looking over the running of our affairs, and basically I think they are looting our country to high heavens, and that's why you have these people basically they are looting our country to high heavens, and this is why I say that this country will be rescued only if we fight corruption with the seriousness it deserves. Otherwise, this is going to cost us a great deal. This is corruption that sinks to high heavens. It is going to cost us, and basically, our young people, we are stealing their future. We are basically stealing their future when we divert public money to private bank accounts, and then we are stealing from their future. We are stealing from the future of our children, from the future of our grandchildren, of our great grandchildren, and this is why. And then you have corruption that stinks to high heavens. You have corruption that does not corruption that makes Kenya basically a poor country. By now, we should have been a Singapore. We should have been Malaysia. Imagine those countries borrowed their manifestos from us. They went and worked on those manifestos, and eventually they became first world countries in a record 20 years, 25 years, in a record generation. In a generation, they became first world countries because they had authoritarian leaders, yes, but they stuck to the rule of the game. That is no corruption, public fiscal management, prudent fiscal management, and that's how these countries became the Asian tigers. But now here the fish rots from the head. Our top officials, including the president, the corruption starts from the president. It goes all the way down to the lowest paid workers. So basically, this is something that I think this is an opportunity that awaits us. We must fight this corruption, and that's how we are going to That's how we are going to revive our country. Otherwise, our country is a closed case. Our continent is a closed case. We have so much resources, but then those resources are concentrated in a few hands. Look at the kids of today. You're telling them to work hard in order. No one believes in hard work anymore. You're telling them to work hard when they have seen their cousin, they have seen their uncle stay for 10, 15 years without a job, even though they have papers. But then they see some crooked politician is worth billions, and this politician has barely gone past standard 6. I'm not saying going past standard 6 means you have more mental acuity, but at least it does show that you have aptitude for something. So you have class for dropouts that are billionaires in Kenya, that are billionaires in Africa, and that's why then you have a country that burns that stings to high heavens. So these people are a cursed Lord, and I think we must be able to take our country back. Let's fight for our country. Let's fight for our continent. We cannot just be like that. We cannot be our resources cannot be stolen like that when we are just looking at it like that. And that's something that we must be able to look into. That's something that we must really think through. How is it that our country basically people are just looting our country like that? That should stop. That should stop. And we should basically be thinking of ways in which we can remake this country. Let's punish corruption. Let us send a few examples, starting from the top, even impeaching the president if we see that he is too corrupt. But these people, I don't know which kind of God they serve, but they seem to be telling us that corruption will go on and on. And then I will look at what will Africa. How does it look with the Trump presidency? How does Africa look with the Trump presidency? I just don't think Africa has any part in the Trump presidency. I just think we are going to be a footnote in America's foreign policy again. Remember, Donald Trump has called African countries shithole countries. He doesn't think much of Africa, but of course, we don't gain much from Africa, even though, of course, our slaves built America, but we don't get much in America. America essentially is dealing with its own internal problems, so you don't expect that it will avail much to Africa. So basically, right now, we are just a footnote in America's foreign policy. But why do we need America in the first place? Basically, Africa neither needs to look to the West with its 600 years of black subjugation, nor does it need to look to China with its depth of diplomacy. Africa needs to look inwards to itself. That's what Africa needs to do. It needs to look inwards to itself. Look at a country such as DR Congo. I'll continue pounding that point home. The mineral waste potential of DR Congo is worth $30 trillion, but that is only if it converts titanium to aeroplane parts, if it converts uranium to nuclear power, if it converts copper to electronics, if it converts cobalt and coltan into mobile phones and computers, if it converts coffee beans to coffee drinking chains, if it converts designer clothes, if it converts cotton to designer clothes, if it converts coffee beans to coffee drinking chains. That's the only way DR Congo. If DR Congo is worth $30 trillion, then Africa can be worth at least at $400 trillion. That's the kind of wealth we are sitting on, 400, 500 trillion dollars. But then how can we achieve that? That can only be achieved if we put some premium on who we are as a people. And basically, I think we need to leave the outsiders. We are the ones to develop Africa and basically bring it to fruition. That's how Africa is going to function. That's how Africa is going to fare. So basically, Donald Trump does not think much of the African people, maybe even of black people in general, because he has had some very uncharacteristic terms in which he has described black people. So don't expect much from the Trump administration towards Africa. Neither, of course, did we get Biden. Biden only visited Africa during his sunset days when he was about to leave office. I think in the last month, that's when former President Joe Biden visited Africa, and it was only to look at a railway line that is supposed to pass through the coast of Angola in order to take mineral resources to the Americas. So you can see they only look at us in terms of extracting raw materials. They never look at us in terms of that is a trade and investment destination. And that's why for Africa to be a miracle story, we cannot be kicking this can down the road. We cannot be pushing this African miracle story to some other time. We just need to be able to function well. And then finally, can a company be large but also agile? Can a company have the resources of a multinational but yet have the speed and agility of a startup? So you have Nokia and Motorola. They were the market leaders in feature phones, but did they transition to be, why did they not transition to be the market leader in smartphones? You had that was taken up by Apple and Samsung. Then you had IBM being the market leader of personal computing hardware, but it never transitioned to be the market leader of personal computing software. Then you had Microsoft itself as the market leader in personal computing software. It never transitioned to be an internet giant. Then, of course, you had Google. Google itself was the search engine leader, but it never transitioned to be the social media leader, where it's a product, Google Plus, $1 billion investment, had to be crushed down. Then, of course, the social media giants, that is Facebook, X, Snapchat, will not be the leaders in 3D augmented reality. A person across the screen will seem as though they are in the same room as you. So basically, you get that, so they will not be the market leader. So for a business, for an economist, for a capitalist, this is great. The fact that $1 trillion company can be taken down, this is great. This shows that capitalism is working in reassigning inefficient words. But I think for a business person, for a business leader, this is really scary, that even with incumbency, even with cash piles of hundreds of billions of dollars, market leadership is not assured, let alone market ascent is not assured, let alone market leadership. Basically, this shows that a business leader needs to be constantly working out and thinking of new ways to reform their companies. And I think maybe one solution is to spin off the R&D department, spin off the research and development department, so that then you have a lot of researchers, maybe these creative geniuses working directly to create new products. I think Google had some sort of that policy I think, where they give employees 1 day a week to be able to work on their personal projects. That's how Gmail came to be, but of course I think they removed that policy. So why do you think a company can have the resources of a multinational but yet have the speed and agility of a startup? Do you think a company can have the resources of a multinational but yet have the speed and agility of a startup? So you can get these two books. One of them is The 1% Continent, How Africa Can Rise Up, and that is looks at, you can read the first 20 pages for free. If you like it, kindly make a purchase. And then, of course, the other book, they give us your best and brightest. What do you think? Why does Africa lose its best and brightest? So during slavery, we lost our most physically able, which was the economic differentiator of the time, and now during that is in the knowledge economy, we are losing our best and brightest. That is the economic differentiator of our time. So losing tens of trillions in both occasions. So do you think how does Africa tackle brain drain? So that's it. it for now. Kindly like, share, and subscribe. So bye for now till the next time. Bye for now.